desperate need of a helper to be able to do what? Fulfill the role that God has given him. That's key. Husbands and wives, that's key to understanding this issue of honoring our wives as the weaker vessel. We desperately need her. She is precious to us in our calling before God. We cannot fulfill our calling before God without her. We are in desperate need. Now, what was Adam's great need? God said, that there was not a helper suitable for him. Suitable for what? What was he missing? What did he need? What was his great need? Well, if I could illustrate it this way, in the photos that Jeremy has been posting on the Facebook page of the surgery, I don't know, how many of y'all looked at those? Deb won't look at them. She said that's just a little more than she can handle, But I found them fascinating. But one of the photos, they're without getting too graphic, but they're putting everything back together. Okay? After they've removed the pancreas, they're fixing everything there. And when Jeremy posted it on the webpage, trying to kind of lighten up the subject matter and just rejoicing in the fact that she's doing so well and that we can actually even joke about some of these things, I put a little caption under the picture, that basically read, surgeon to attending nurse, was it the knee bone connected to the thigh bone or the hip bone connected to the knee bone? I'm confused here. And Jeremy wrote back to me and he says, Lacey said, good thing you weren't her surgeon. I'm sure that every one of us in this room, to the extent that we could, would have been willing in a moment's notice to go into that surgery room and help in any way we could for those surgeons to do that surgery. Agreed? Some of us may not have been able to watch, but we'd have done anything we could. But as I look around here, as best I understand right now, none of us are equipped to stand along that side, that surgeon, and help him in that surgery, are we? Now, there are people that are so equipped. Jeremy happens to be one of them. David was one of them. We've got good friends of ours that go to First Baptist, Ronnie and Wendy. And Wendy, back in her early days before their family, she was a surgical nurse. There are nurses that take years of training to prepare themselves. Carol, I'm sorry, I forgot about, have you ever done any surgery work? Okay. But that have spent years preparing themselves to assist a surgeon in doing surgery. But guys, there's not a one of us in here that are ready for that. If we stood alongside him, we might be able to handle what we were looking at, but the first time he started asking for Metzenbaum scissors or some of those other things, we'd be clueless. We would not know what to do. You see, ladies, you are absolutely necessary for our calling as husbands. God has equipped you as our vitally necessary helper. How many of us would look at a trained surgical nurse and walk up to that trained surgical nurse screaming at the doctor and saying, you chauvinist pig, you're using her? No, we wouldn't do that. We would consider to be her a person of great worth, but yet she is subservient to the doctor. She's submissive to the surgeon. She does what he tells her to do. She serves that purpose of fulfilling that necessary role to allow him to do his necessary role. He couldn't do it without her. None of us would look at her and say, well, she's second rate. You know, she's cut bait because she's not him. No. She's vital, she's necessary, she's honored, she's considered extremely important. He can't do his calling without her. Men, that's how we need to look at our wives. We cannot fulfill our calling, the calling that God's placed on us, without her. We have to honor her. Is she the weaker vessel? Is she the one that is to be submissive to us? Yes. But that does not in any way downplay her importance. It simply shows the role that she has as the one helping and not the one leading. But it has nothing to do with her importance, her valuableness. You see, the role or the term weaker vessel doesn't infer inferiority, but it does relate subjection in responsibility and role. You see, Adam's great need was for another like him, designed and equipped to help him fulfill his calling by God. And one of the vital areas of that calling was the issue of be fruitful and multiply. Now, modern science is trying to do everything it can to come up with an answer to that one. But guess what? Ladies, you are absolutely necessary. If man is going to fulfill his calling in that sense, you are vital. You are necessary. You are precious. You are priceless. But it doesn't just stop there with the idea of procreation. The idea of being fruitful and multiplying within the Christian context, within the mind of God, is more than just procreation. Any animal can do that. But only man can be fruitful and multiply in a biblical sense in which everything is led and guided back to God. Only man can do that. And only man who has been renewed by God can do that. And gentlemen, in that task, I submit to you that our wives play a huge role. A role that there is absolutely no way that we could fulfill on our own. So Peter calls all husbands to show great honor to the wife. She is the absolutely necessary helper needed to fulfill God's calling as new creatures in God's new kingdom. I didn't tell my wife I was going to do this. She can holler at me later or throw something. You got a book? But you know, when I look at my wife, and I say this with all sincerity, I marvel at how God has designed her and equipped her for her calling as my wife. You know, to state the obvious, as I said a moment ago, there's no way we would be able to have a family without her. But it goes so much deeper than that. The years that my wife has cared for and nurtured our children in biblical Christian principles. The countless hours and days of preparation and diligence homeschooling our children. and directing our children in the